Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining to this session this morning. Let me first of all introduce myself. My name is Carlos Garcia, and I'm the Global EDI Services Director for QAD. And I'll be talking today around how EDI can help you to become into more effective collaborations with different trading partners. So let me begin with the safe harbor statement. So the following is intended to outline QAD's general product direction. It is intended for information purposes only and may not be incorporated into any contract. It is not a commitment to deliver any material, code, functional capabilities, and should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. The development, release, and timing of any features or functional capabilities described for QAD's products remains at the sole discretion of QAD. Okay, now that we've gone through the legal stuff, let's begin talking. Let me begin going through a little bit of what the agenda for today is intended to be. I would like to first go through an introduction to the QAD EDI solution so that we have the different, a high-level description of the different elements, of the different components of the solution. And then we will be having a more detailed look at specifically the QAD Cloud EDI offering. Specifically concentrating the view into what is our delivery model and what are, in my opinion, some key aspects of the service that are in fact enabling this effectiveness increase in the collaboration with trading partners. And how can you do a transition? So how can you move from your current existing EDI architectures into QAD Cloud EDI, how that can be deployed? And last but not least, which is the value proposition, so which are the benefits for you as a business, as manufacturers, to engage into a Cloud EDI model, in fact. And the last point that I would like to go through is around a case study of a pretty big project that we have been going through, in which QAD Cloud EDI has been the cornerstone to implement the handling of 3PL. This is also mainly intended so that people understand that there is much more than in EDI than just creating orders or sending ASNs and invoices to customers. There's much more in terms of the interoperability space where you can have some effectiveness increases that will help your businesses. So we will be having a little bit a case study around that. Okay, so let me begin. Let's go through the basic EDI architecture. So in any EDI project, the first element, or the last, is the ERP integration. So that is the creation into the ERP, into the application of whatever structure or entity needs to be created. So if we are integrating an order from a customer, it will be the creation of the sales order itself. Or if we are doing an inventory movement, it could be making that inventory movement actually happens in the ERP. That is what we call the ERP integration component of the EDI project, and that is handled by the Edi Commerce module, which is one of the modules of QAD. And as such, depending on which is your QAD, the rest of your QAD applications implementation can be deployed either in an on-premise environment or in a cloud environment. So whatever you have for the rest of your applications, that's what you're going to have for EDI Commerce. For those of our customers who are not really interested in having a day-to-day operational knowledge or assistance on the EDI aspects around EDI Commerce as an optional offering, we do provide what we call AMS, Application Managed Services, for EDI Commerce. But that really depends on which are the internal capabilities. That's something that would be interesting on. Then, beyond the ERP integration itself, we have the two other components, which are the EDI communication and the EDI translation. So that if we are thinking of having let's say that we are going through an order process, and we are integrating an order. The different steps would be, first of all, would be the exchange of the EDI file, of the EDI message with our trading partner, and obviously through a secure way. And the next step would be to translate that EDI file, which could be in whatever EDI format, in whatever EDI standard, you name it. EDIFACT, BDA, X12, whatever. There are literally hundreds of standards. And then convert it into the QAD format that we call SNF, which is the standard neutral file. And that would be, that translation would be the last element that we would be doing in a QAD EDI station. These two elements, the EDI communication and the EDI translation, is what we only provide as a cloud service. Okay? So that's in fact what we call the QAD Cloud EDI. Let me be very clear on this. Does this mean that if you are an on-premise customer, you cannot use QAD Cloud EDI? No, you can. You can use QAD Cloud EDI disregarding what is the deployment method that you use for the rest of the applications. The only component is that we will be providing the EDI translation and communication as a cloud service. This will bring the benefit that you will not have to have neither the software nor the hardware be hosted internally. We will be providing that for you, even though you may be having already the rest of your QAD applications on-premise. Okay? But let me also be very clear. What QAD Cloud EDI applications, the QAD Cloud EDI services is the provision of EDI translation and EDI communication. Okay? Good. So, as a summary, which are the different elements that compose the QAD EDI architecture, the QAD EDI offering, are basically three elements. Edi Commerce, which is in charge of the integration and it's part of the QAD applications. QAD Cloud EDI, that provides the EDI translation and communication always in a deployment as a cloud. And the optional component of application managed services for EDI Commerce, depending on which are your particular needs. Okay? So this is a view of the high-level architecture. Let's move now to see a little bit more in detail the different elements and components of QAD Cloud EDI, as we saw in the agenda. Let's begin with the delivery model. Which is our delivery model? The basic element in our delivery model is, in fact, the services that are provided by the group that I'm honored to head at QAD. And in this sense, we act as the single point of contact for our customers, so that we are the go-to people. No ping pong playing on this. We are the sole ones responsible for that. And we do that throughout all the process, at the initial implementation, but also after the implementation in an ongoing support services model. Okay? One element that for me is, in fact, very, very important. I've been working in this space for the last 16 years, which is a reasonable amount of time. And one of the things that, across my personal experience, has been showing that it is pretty important in terms of the efficiency of the project implementation side, is that you really need to have someone who takes accountability for your projects and for your operations. Having too many vendors, it's always dealing to discussions, need of coordination, delays, and that's an element that in my personal implementation experience as a consultant during several years was giving us many problems. Many problems. So in fact, when I was asked by QAD management to come up with a strategy for which should be the QAD offering in the EDI space, one of the elements that I really had very, very clear is that we needed to have a solution for which we could be providing our customers a full solution, end-to-end, and where we could take the whole accountability and the whole responsibility for taking that, not only for the implementation, but also for the after services. And that's why and how we created both this offering and the group that I'm honored to head. So who are this team, or how many people we are? We are in fact 40 plus consultants, to be fully precise, 41. And we are based globally. We have our center of operations in Barcelona. You probably have noticed my very strong Spanish accent. Apologies for that. But that's where we have the bulk of our people. Obviously, we also have people in North America, who are based in Michigan, and in Asia Pacific, who are based in Shanghai. Our global customers, and EDI is a key element needed all around, and needs to have a global coverage. And that's why we need to be also a global team. And the second element of our delivery model is a partnership with a company called Data Interchange. This company is in fact providing us all the supporting software and all the supporting hardware in the background. They are specialists. They are in this space for over 30 years. They are in fact a van provider. And they are supplying us, the backbone. So everything that is in the background that makes possible these transactions to take place. And what QAD is doing is the front end and all the EDI Commerce integration. That's what it's making, that it's a seamless integration. Okay, so let me now go through on what, in my opinion, are the key elements or the key aspects of this service. The first element, as you would expect, is that a QAD Cloud EDI solution should be fully integrated with QAD, right? I mean, that is a basic element. But also it's a key advantage, because in fact, and we will be seeing this in a little bit more detail a little bit later, and directly from QAD applications, you are going to have access to all your EDI translation and communication information, so that your users are going to have in one single screen all the information on whether a certain ASN has been received by the customer or not, on whether we have received the acknowledgement, the 997 or not, and on whether the customer has also provided some acknowledgement that there's something wrong in the data and there is an acknowledgement error in terms of data application that he needs to take action. So there's no need for him to be jumping between screens and between different applications, or getting to go to IT to ask whether something has been received or not. He has all the information directly, readily available in one single place. This is all in line of what Pam was explaining and Tony Winter was explaining yesterday around the importance of usability. So this is the element around that in EDI. And needless to say that this is a unique offering in the QAD space. Don't get me wrong. There are similar solutions in other ERPs, but in the QAD space, we are the only provider that provide this level of integration with QAD applications, as you would also expect. And the second key aspect is that we already have, as you would expect also, a wide library of translation maps and e-commerce, EDI commerce transformations available for our customers. Yeah, and it's 41 people, as I was saying before, working full-time on EDI already for many years with many customers. We do have a wide library. I was reviewing our figures before coming, in fact, last Friday, and I was in fact amazed and shocked by the number of, from a pure services perspective, that we had some level of interaction during the last year. It was 280 different customers with whom we were having some kind of interaction from an EDI services perspective. So you can imagine that you would expect that we would be having a wide library readily available. And in fact, because of that, and because QAD can act as the provider of the concentrator of all those libraries, of all those maps, and for QC stands for QAD Cloud EDI, all the translation maps, we do provide them free of charge. The reason why we can provide them free of charge is very simple. We create our maps for one customer, but those are reused for other customers. So that basically we get that synergy and we can share that synergy with you. So that is a very important element. Again, in the QAD space, you will not find someone who will provide you the maps for free. And with regards to the EDI Commerce Libraries, again, as I was saying before, there's a wide library available. And again, not only with regards to what let me call it traditional EDI, it's also around interoperability, how to integrate with suppliers, with logistics providers, with advanced warehouses. There's much more around EDI than just sales order processing. The next key aspect that I would like to highlight is, of course, EDI communications. And when you're looking for a cloud EDI solution, or in fact, when you're looking for an EDI solution, you want to make sure that the solution that you get is able to provide you with the widest possible connectivity that you can, because you don't know what changes you're going to need to embrace in the future. So, and how you can make sure that whatever you choose or whatever is your strategy in terms of EDI communications can provide you enough coverage, not only for your current business, but also for your future business. So that was an important element and in the definition of our own QAD EDI strategy. So basically what we decided to come up with is, first element is we wanted a solution that we could provide to our customers without needing to ask you or to ask them to get a charge for every single WAN interconnection. The QAD Cloud EDI has no WAN interconnection fee, but we are interconnected with all the major WANs. You name them. Sterling, GXS, Covicint, Intesa. I mean, there are literally hundreds of them. So our strategy in this area is we do establish WAN interconnections with other WANs, and we do not incorporate that as a part of our fees, basically because we want to have the widest possible connectivity that ensures that we can serve the widest majority of our customer base, which is pretty global and also pretty spread through our verticals. I mean, there's many different connectivity requirements. So for that reason, we support not only WAN connections, but also all kind of direct trading partner connections. Again, I will not go through the details of the technicalities, but we basically support all the major connectivity methods. ACE2, FTP, OFTP, whatever. In the same line, exactly the same as with EDI communications, with regards to EDI translations, you want to make sure that the solution that you choose is able to support not only all the major EDI standards, but that also is able to handle XML or comma-separated files or flat files. That gives you the possibility and the flexibility to interact not only with those of your partners that are fully capable, but also with those that are not that capable, but that can still provide some kind of structured information that then you can convert into EDI and process that through the rest of the flow. The next element, and this is what I was describing at the beginning, on what I believe is one of the most important elements, in my personal opinion, around the EDI implementation process is around how we can streamline that. Because, in fact, the concept is quite easy. If you have the same team that is performing all the different stages of the EDI implementation, from the communication going through the translation and ending in the integration into QAD, it's going to be simpler, the need of coordination is going to be much less, and of course that's going to also make that the cost is more cost effective, basically because we will need less time to implement it. The seventh element is, and this is in fact something that we have introduced this year, and is part of the things that we have done over the last 12 months, and is that now there's mobile access to the dashboard. So that means that through your iPhone or iPad applications, you can get access to what is the status of all your communications, all your EDI translation and communications. That's also an important element. Okay, so those were basically, the different elements or the different aspects that, in my opinion, are key elements for both our service offering and in general as a cloud EDI offering. Let me now show you in a little bit more detail, not too much, what is the QAD Cloud EDI dashboards. Obviously, as a cloud service, what you would expect is that you have access through a web browser to all your EDI communications, so that you can see all your EDI transactions, the ones that have been in both directions, inbound and outbound, which ones have been right, which ones have been wrong, and that you need to take some action on it. And we obviously provide that. But as I was mentioning before, what it is much more interesting is that we do provide that information, that same information, readily available from QAD applications. So that from what we call the QAD Cloud EDI Tracking Workbench, which is in fact a QAD workbench, and we have all the elements of an EDI operation for both looking at which are the transactions, but also at reprocessing and having any kind of corrections that need to be taken, and also around all the information that around EDI translation and communication that might be relevant. So in this particular example, what we are basically showing is this would be what a shipping clerk in your shipping departments would be looking at. So basically, he would like to have a workbench with, okay, what shipments have I done today to Ford, for instance, and which is the status of all of them? Have I received the acknowledgements from the trading partners? So have those ASNs arrived or not? And all that information, you would like to have it readily available in the same place without needing to navigate through different websites or without needing to ask that information from IT. This is, in fact, from my perspective, a very, very important element. Let me now also show just a very little portion of some of the trading partners that we are, in fact, already connected to. In the automotive space, you would see here most of them. So all the big ones, Ford, Volkswagen, Audi, GM, Chrysler. I mean, I will not go through all of them. But EDI is not, as you know very well, it's not just around automotive anymore. It's also around consumer products. So you name them. All the major supermarkets in the US, in the UK, all around Europe, even in Asia, you need to have EDI connections with them. So again, you name them, Walmart, Sobeys, Carrefour, Edeka, Morrison's. This is really, really a very small portion. But, you know, I wanted to give you a little bit of a glance. And beyond consumer products, more and more on the health service, on the health sciences arena, EDI is getting more and more traction. So, in fact, today, if you want to do business with hospitals, depending in which region, you need to do EDI, yes or yes. And it's not only about the fact that it's something that might be mandated by your customers, which is in itself a very important element, but it's also around the efficiencies that you can get from the fact that you are automating your processes. Okay. Now, so the next question is, how can I transition? If you remember, how can I move from my current operations into a cloud EDI strategy? Which are my options? If you remember during the general sessions, and I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, but one of the elements that was mentioned was that, in general, there are catalysts that provide the impulse to get into a move into a certain direction and to implement a cloud solution. That could be the need of new hardware or an upgrade. Okay, yeah, you know, all those exist. But it's not only about that. What, in fact, we call QAD Cloud EDI transition has been something that we have been introduced very recently, and it's our desire to make it as simple as possible so that even if these catalysts do not exist, it's easy to perform a QAD Cloud EDI transition. So in that sense, well, what we call this transition to QAD Cloud EDI, the approach that we follow is we basically keep your existing EDI commerce transformations as they are. They already contain your business processes. They already contain all the elements that are specific to you. But what we do is we add onto those EDI commerce transformations all the elements that are required to have that integration with the EDI translation and communication. Okay? And of course, the element that we completely substitute is your current existing EDI translation and communication solution to implement QAD Cloud EDI. So this is in fact something that it's designed for customers that are currently using already EDI commerce and that are using a third-party EDI and translation and communication solution, and either on-premise or also as a fan service, whatever option. This, in fact, makes that these projects have really, literally minimal implementation lead time. It's something pretty seamless to do that requires some but very limited effort from your side, and of course that the implementation cost is also very small. This is in fact I believe that in English the right expression is a low-hanging fruit, that it's something very easy to obtain. It's a very simple approach to obtain the benefits that are associated to the cloud. And we're seeing that this offering has been something pretty popular in terms of migration of on current on-premise EDI stations, and an easy way to increment the bandwidth on the IT departments. And so that you can very quickly get back some of the bandwidth that you have from your own IT staff by deferring to the QAD Cloud EDI service your day-to-day EDI operations. So let me finish with probably the most important element. So which is, in our opinion, the value proposition. So what do you as businesses get from getting into the cloud EDI? And first of all is that you get a truly end-to-end solution. Something that it's not just one component. You get a full EDI solution that provides all the elements in and out. Second is that it's provided by what we call the one-step shop concept, so that is one single vendor provider. So one single provider, in this case QAD, that provides all the elements, and that with that takes full accountability for you around EDI operations. That's the key element. Of course, that it's fully integrated with QAD applications, and that in fact, this is completing our QAD cloud offering. It's going to be pretty obvious from all these days that it's a very clear direction on our strategy, on QAD strategy, that we are, it's part of our, I would say even our value to become a true cloud company. And we would not be a serious cloud company if we were not able to provide you a cloud EDI solution in its entirety. So that's very, very important from our perspective. And there are many ways to look at that, and I will not go through all of them, but at the end of the day, what we are talking about is about providing you, allow you to increase your bandwidth, to focus more on your core business, so that we take all the burden of having the EDI operations out from you into some people for whom the EDI transactions are the core business. So that is, in fact, a key element. I was talking with some of our customers during these days, and in fact, the CIO of one of those companies was telling me, Carlos, you know, I don't want my IT guys to become experts on how to develop translation maps or on how to develop EDI commerce transformations. I want them to focus on the improvement in our business processes and how to be more effective in our usage of our business systems. And I prefer that all that is done by true specialists on that area. So, I mean, yeah, that's one of the basic elements, or one of the basic benefits that a cloud solution provides. And last but not least, we are more and more global, in all the senses. We really feel that from the interactions that we have with you, different companies, different contexts, but the trend that it's pretty obvious from the very last years is that every single company is getting more and more global. So getting into a strategy that provides you the possibility to have a standardized model to deploy EDI in a consistent way throughout your different operations globally is a tremendous benefit. That's a tremendous benefit. So that you do not need to have EDI specialists in every single area where your operations are. That's a huge operational benefit and can be a very good competitive advantage. Okay, so that was basically around the conceptual areas. What I would like to now have a very quick look at a case study on how we handle the interconnectivity for one of our clients with 3PL, 4PL. Let me first introduce, for those of you who are not familiar with this type of business, and let me very quickly and from a very high level introduce it. And let's assume that, yeah, of course, this is all about manufacturing. You have your manufacturing facilities, right? But you, for whatever reason, for whatever logistic reason, your business decides that there's the need to come to a 3PL, 4PL subcontractor, which is in fact going to be in charge of the warehousing management and the shipment of all your operations, of all your products. So that basically, you just leave them all the difficulties or all the complexities around the stock management and the shipping operations for them, and you keep and concentrate on what you know how to do, that is manufacture. That's pretty obvious. So very likely, you're going to have two different systems. You will have QAD applications on your site, on your manufacturing facility, and the 3PL, 4PL provider, whoever that one is going to have another, well, in fact, it's not going to be an ERP, it's going to be a WMS, a warehousing management solution or system. And you need to have those two systems interconnected. So you need to keep them synchronized, because at the end of the day, whatever you have in the 3PL, 4PL provider, it belongs to you. It needs to be in your books, and they need to handle your shipments. So that's a very important thing. So from a stock transactioning system, what you're going to need to interface, to link, to interoperate is, first of all, the shipments from your manufacturing facilities to your 3PLs. Obviously, the shipments from your 3PL to your customers, to other of your facilities. You may be having more than one facility, or other 3PLs, because it might be that you have different 3PL providers in different regions of the world, and you may need to have interconnections between all those 3PLs. And of course, the next step is going to be, but I also am going to need to have the receptions from my suppliers in this 3PL. And of course, I will need to get back the components or the raw materials that these suppliers have been providing to us. So at the end of the day, all these transactions is something that you need to have as a link. So the company that we were working for on this project, and we have gone live, I don't want to lie to you, but I believe it's 3 weeks ago. And they have a huge volume. We're talking about thousands of shipments. That even if they are small, thousands of shipments is serious words. And with volume, you need to have a very robust solution that provides you all that interconnectivity. Otherwise, you're simply dead. So when we were beginning at the project, one of the elements was, okay, what are the requirements from the business for this 3PL interoperability? So the first big element that was highlighted was highlighted by them was, we need to have full interoperability between all our 3PLs regionally. So that means that we need to have interactions between different 3PLs providers, whoever they are, in different regions, and we may need, for whatever logistic reason, perform shipments between the different regions. First one. The obvious one was the second, the need to fully automate all kind of warehousing management transactions. So the shipments to the customers, supplier receipts, material and distribution orders, quality control, or stock movements or stock reconciliation, all those transactions need to be mirrored between a 3PL provider system and your QAD application system. Otherwise, that's the full purpose of it. But on top of that, a key element, especially when you're talking about this level of volumes, is something that looks like a paradox, which is the fact that you need to have the possibility to support an asynchronous synchronization. And let me elaborate a little bit more on what that is. So basically, in general, not only when you have big volumes, but in all kind of scenarios, what you want, what you need, is that the result does not depend on the order in which the transactions have happened. That if for whatever reason a transaction has been, the 3PL has made a mistake and it's sending you a message prior to something that they should have been processing before, your system is robust enough to be able to handle that without problems and that whenever you are getting the right message back from the 3PL, things are corrected without the need of you or your IT people to correct and spend a lot of time on pushing transactions through the system. That is a key element. And last but not least, the last element is that you normally need to have a mixed picking environment. You need to support that. What does that mean? There are basically two big alternatives. You can choose that you are going to mandate your 3PL which lots or which serials are going to be used for each of the transactions, for each of the shipments. Or, alternatively, you may decide to do the other way around, which is you just tell them where they need to ship, which are the quantities that they need to ship, and of course the part numbers, and let them pick whatever it makes more sense for them to pick. Well, reality is that you need to be able to work in a mixed environment that is able to combine the two elements. And in fact, our recommendation is always do as much as you can, letting the 3PL who is close to the stock, who is close to the physical goods, do the vast majority, and only for those exceptions where your 3PL provider does not have enough business knowledge to determine which are the right lots or the right serials that are requested for a particular sales order, in that environment, then you mandate that. And, you know, this that it's easy to say, trust me, has very good complexities behind it. Very good complexities. Okay, so the geographical representation of what in fact we have been done with this customer is they basically have in their strategy 3 different big 3PLs regionally. One is in the United States, second one is in the Netherlands, and the third one is in Japan. And they have a huge number of subsidiaries, and not all of them are manufacturing facilities, but are either sales offices or technical offices where they are doing repairs and SSM transactions. And all these are now interoperated through QAD Cloud EDI with their different 3PL providers. In fact, if I overlook at the solution architecture that we have implemented there, it's basically we've been able to provide them with a full interoperability framework that allows them to have stock alignment between their systems and their 3PL systems, and a fully automated transaction system. You know, from a 3PL perspective, the transactions are pretty simple, if you allow me. They basically receive an order to ship, and they ship, or they receive an order to receive, and they receive. But from an ERP perspective, the business processes that may be triggering those 3 simple transactions might be many more, and are much more complex and need to be routed properly. All that, in fact, for this particular case, we are exchanging 14 different types of EDI messages, each one of them performing a different transaction. That then for the 3PL is a simple one, but from a QAD applications perspective, is providing a much more robust and a much more complex interoperability framework. Okay? So that's basically it from my side. I don't know if you have any questions. This? Sorry? Yeah, well, we can provide you if you're interested with the cost structure. You just need to contact me and we can look at it in a bit more detail. It's a bit difficult to provide you a generic answer without looking at the details. Yes? Yes? iOS only. iOS only at this time. Yes? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The way in which normally that's the case. When normally that's the case, it's the supplier who is not capable. Normally the customers are having much more capabilities. So when the supplier is not able to have EDI capabilities, the solution is called the formerly known as supply chain portal. It's the QAD Cloud portal that provides a web EDI solution for those suppliers who are not able to have EDI. So basically, from a high-level architecture perspective, your suppliers are getting into a portal. They introduce the transactions, they introduce what they are sending to you, and then the Cloud EDI portal is in fact your single connectivity, and that connectivity is done through EDI. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, there's an equivalent for that on the customer space, okay, which is called CSS, basically. Okay, that's if your customer doesn't have an EDI capability and he's willing to log into a platform and log their orders so that then you can get them, and that's what we would recommend. Okay, yes. Uh-huh. Yes, sorry for that. The question is, what is the interim space? How do you decide when the solution that you're going to do is going to be going with the Dell Boomi integration that was presented by Tony Winter the other day, or when you're using EDI? Well, unfortunately, the answer for that is that there is not one answer that fits it all. It depends on the cases. And let me give you an example. There's not only some level of overlapping with Dell Boomi. You might be telling me, and when shall I use QExtend versus using EDI Commerce? Well, it really depends on the cases. We've been implementing some projects where it made sense to have the combination of both, where one portion that was handling with a third-party portal was done by QExtend, who is the solution to be dealing with SOAP transactions, sorry. But then the transactional base was finally done by EDI Commerce because that was providing a single user framework so that disregarding which was the origin of the transaction, there was one single place for the users to use it. Having said that, in general terms, EDI Commerce is designed to deal in an interoperability framework when you are having a transaction with someone who is outside the boundaries of your company. If you would be doing interoperability with elements or with applications that are within your company, normally the answer for that is QExtend. Okay? But again, it's better if it is a complex interoperability scenario to analyze it to get which is the best element rather than just give you a generic answer. Okay? I know that I'm not answering you in full, but I'm afraid that's what it is. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, then just let me thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. And please remember to evaluate this session. I would be very grateful if you could just give us your opinion. Thank you very much.